Sputnik. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. During the Cold War in 1983, two Russian cosmonauts, Commander Konstantin Veshnyakov and Lieutenant Kirill Overchenko, complete the final leg of the Orbit 4 space mission. Overchenko talks about his excitement to see his family as they prepare for an atmospheric re-entry towards the Earth. After executing all the system procedures, the two men are finally ready to descend. As they begin to enter the Earth's atmosphere, powerful turbulence suddenly causes their spacecraft to shake vigorously, forcing the system to fluctuate. As both men try to regain their composure, they notice a silhouette of a non-terrestrial creature, lumbering across the window toward them. The Orbit 4 spacecraft enters the Earth's atmosphere as it crash-landed in the fields of Kazakhstan with only Konstantin surviving. Inside the Research Institute of Brain in Moscow, Dr. Tatyana Yuryevna, a psychiatrist and a renowned neurophysiologist, stands on trial for alleged malpractice. She explains that her patient was improperly diagnosed by the previous doctor and insists that the method of submerging the patient into the water is necessary to temporarily cut the oxygen supply inside the lungs. In the end, Tatyana is sanctioned for dismissal. Meanwhile, Colonel Semiradov, head secretary of the Soviet Union Scientific Research, spectates her proceedings from afar. Impressed by her forthright attitude, he approaches Tatyana and presents a proposition. Semiradov tells Tatyana that he runs a research institute for neuropsychiatry. He persuades her that he will take care of the review board if she goes with him to Kazakhstan to work on a case. Showing no reluctance, Tatyana takes the helicopter with Semiradov, heading their way to Kazakhstan. In flight, Semiradov discloses how they had to falsify the media reports about the recent Orbit 4 landing. He then tells Tatyana how they lost radio contact with them on the day before they landed. And the patient, sole survivor Commander Konstantin, who was then retrieved near the spacecraft's remains, suddenly suffers from episodic memory loss. They soon arrive at the All-Union Scientific Research Institute. As they head to one of the underground labs, Semiradov tells Tatyana that she has access to 90% of the facility. They find Dr. Yen Rigel, the research director of the institute, attempting to hypnotize Konstantin. After a few minutes of bad luck, Rigel ends the session in disappointment. As Rigel vents his frustration out, Tatyana enters the glass confinement to meet Konstantin. She introduces herself and offers him a cup of tea. Just as he grabs the cup, Tatyana observes his every movement keenly. She explains that she was requested to assess his condition. Then she shows an indifferent expression towards him and suddenly asks about his toy. Despite Tatyana's impoliteness, Konstantin graciously answers that it's a cosmonaut's tradition to bring one personal possession with them in space. After a few minutes of running through the initial stage of the interview, Konstantin asks Tatyana's help to contact his mother to tell her that he's doing well. Neither confirming to agree nor disagree, she then takes her leave. On the other side of the glass confinement, she tells her colleagues that the patient is suffering from PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and explains that his sensory receptors may be damaged as she expresses her disapproval of confining Konstantin more of a prisoner than a patient. After stating her case, Tatyana tells Semiradov that she's already done and now intends to leave. Tatyana is scheduled for the next day's flight to Moscow. Without a choice, she is compelled to stay for the night. After making up her room, she then goes to the telephone to grant Konstantin's request to call his mother, but the operator denies her attempt. Later that night, Semiradov knocks on her door, bringing her back to the lab. A group of soldiers suddenly arrives, moving quickly to secure an additional set of latches around Konstantin's confines. Then on a monitor screen, Tatyana watches Konstantin struggle as he spews blood on the floor, after which an embryo of a non-terrestrial creature comes out from his mouth. Seeing the creature come to life, she spaces out in extreme terror. Tatyana then clings around herself, trying to keep herself together. Semiradov explains that the creature resides inside Konstantin. The creature comes out from its host during the night. Although it may look like Konstantin suffers in pain, it exits and enters his body without really harming him. Tatyana is suspicious and demands the reason why they want her to work on this classified case. Semiradov admits that he chose her because of her radical approach in the medical field regardless of the process in order to get certain results. Instead of being flattered, Tatyana feels that her abilities are being challenged. She then pensively demands all the classified materials to properly officiate the case. Tatyana finds out about the nature of the creature as she examines the results of the previous experiments when they tried to separate the creature from its host. Without the creature, Konstantin's vital signs progressively deteriorate, while at the same time, he acquires phenomenal vitality and exceptional healing capabilities when the creature is inside his body. The creature incubates itself between Konstantin's esophagus and stomach, and every time it urges to exit its host, it induces a toxin that relaxes the muscles, knocking its host unconscious as it ventures outside. Its ability to withstand outside its host's body increases by a fraction of 10 minutes on every occasion, and currently, the creature can stay outside for over an hour. Tatyana is determined to find out whether the creature is a parasite or a symbiote that bonds with its host, creating a single entity. Meanwhile, as Tatyana reviews the footage of the creature, Dr. Rigel enters the room. She then asks Rigel how the creature feeds. Rigel explains that it gets its nutrients from the food that Konstantin eats. As Tatyana notices Rigel's enmity towards her, she sarcastically clarifies that she is not after his position nor his aim for the Nobel Prize. Later on, she makes an appointment with Konstantin and catches him inside his cell exercising. Konstantin confronts Tatyana that she might presumably be drawn to him and accuses her that she willingly presented herself to officiate this case. Tatyana sarcastically informs him that she is more likely to think that he is deranged. Catching his attention, Konstantin asks her to elaborate. She discloses that the whole institution thinks that he killed his co-pilot, Overchenko. After finding Overchenko dead as soon as they have landed, there is no other person that is likely to be suspected except him. Showing signs of aggravation, Konstantin realizes that it could be the whole reason why they held him in detention. As he conveys how he prepares for this moment of truth, he insists that he didn't know how it happened if it did really happen. Ignoring his claim, Tatyana adds that she read on his profile that he abandoned his son. She accuses him of being self-centered to have chosen his career as a space crew rather than to be a father to his child. Konstantin is offended and asks her to leave. She then quickly returns to her infuriated colleagues and apologizes for her menial manner towards Constantine. She orders them to test his endocrine levels as she explains that she intended to aggravate him on purpose to increase his psychological stress in order to accurately determine how the creature reacts to hormonal change. Afterward, she asks Semiradov to transfer Constantine into a medical unit during daylight hours and to allow him to interact with other people in an attempt to recreate a normal life circumstance for him to obtain a realistic clinical approach. The next day, Tatiana pays Constantine a visit to his assigned medical unit. She apologizes for provoking him intentionally just to measure his hormone levels under severe distress. Constantine sits down silently, turning his back on her. As Tatiana is about to leave, he suddenly tells her that he didn't know about the child. A week before his flight, he was informed about his fiancée's death. His fiancée didn't have any relatives, so his son was brought into an orphanage without his knowledge. The government concealed that information from him in order to prevent him from making any sudden decisions prior to their mission. Then Constantine approaches her and tells her about his suspicion that she stayed not to cure him of amnesia but for a far greater reason. Tatiana falls silent for a while, and as she stares at him, she tells him that she is not allowed to disclose anything. On that night, Tatiana stands behind the glass confinement as Constantine lies unconsciously on the floor. The creature walks towards her, scanning her on the other side of the glass. Tatiana demonstrates to show how she lies on the floor. Observing her movements, the creature imitates her position. She then accidentally knocks Constantine's toy as she stands up. As the toy staggers, the creature looks at it in fascination. Tatiana then puts on a protective suit and demands to raise the glass. Without anything in between them, she places the toy in front of the creature. All of a sudden, the creature twines around the toy unexpectedly, as if a predator protecting its offspring. Looking in astonishment, Tatiana tries to lay a hand on the creature but suddenly slips on the slime in the attempt, causing the creature to react violently. Semiradov immobilizes the creature by switching the bright lights on. Then he immediately lowers the glass down as the soldiers pull Tatiana to safety. Right after the incident, Semiradov checks on Tatiana. Excited about her new discovery, she tells him how Constantine's subconscious self embodies the creature's mind after noticing how the creature reacted towards the toy. She hypothesizes that it reacted in such a way because the toy reminds him about the guilt he feels towards his son. She is convinced that Constantine and creature are a single entity and share the same conscious mind. She assesses that the creature partially alleviates Constantine's memory and social skills, causing amnesia. She then concludes that at some point, the creature will no longer need its host. She suggests bringing Constantine to Moscow for proper treatment but is instantly rejected by the colonel. Semiradov justifies that he makes fake reports every day to protect his comrade and to substantially avoid getting an order from the higher-ups to destroy the creature and most likely eliminate Constantine as well. Tatiana once again reviews the videos and happens to notice some parts of the footage were edited. She then confronts Rigel about her suspicion that the creature might not be feeding on what Constantine takes in for himself but entirely feeds itself separately. She asserts that in order for her to lead a sound investigation, she demands the right to know about everything. Rigel reacts distressfully as he threatens her, telling her to go back to Moscow. Tatiana then reminds Rigel about the Nobel Prize, after which she insists that he won't make any progress without her expertise as she convinces Rigel to provide her all the information without letting Semiradov know. Later that night, Rigel takes Tatiana during the creature's feeding sessions. Concealing herself at the back of Rigel's truck, she's able to sneak inside the feeding chamber. Rigel hands her a night vision telescope in order for her to completely observe the whole procedure. In a large cage, the soldiers locked in one of the prisoners inside. Due to its sensitivity towards bright lights, the feeding must be done in a low light condition as they bring forth the creature to its human prey. The creature shows itself to its victims first in order to expand their fear, letting the brain increase its cortisol production from which the creature feeds and obtains its nutrition. The next morning, Tatiana invites Constantine for a run around the facility's compound. As they do their rounds, Tatiana secretly tells him about the alien creature from outer space that's inside him. Then she continues about her recent discovery that the creature feeds on people. She then explains that she can help him separate the creature from himself, but in order to do that, they need someone that can inform the government regarding his condition. He acts as if he heard nothing from Tatiana and quickly turns around. Just as before Constantine finishes his run, he instructs her to meet him at midnight on the hallway that is located close to the lab. At exactly midnight, both Constantine and Tatiana are able to meet at the rendezvous. They remain covert, slipping in the hallway, heading towards the facility's morgue. Constantine confesses that he is the creature himself, a version of himself without morals nor obligations. He admits that he feels everything it feels and clearly remembers every detail of what it sees. Then she asks for the reason why he keeps it for himself if he already knew what was happening from the beginning. He justifies that if ever Semiradov knows that he can control the creature, the more that he will be kept in custody. He plans to endure everything for 2 weeks before getting a discharge order from the review board. However, Tatiana disapproves of the thought that he needs to feed on people for another 2 weeks. This creates a great deal of disagreement between them. Upon returning to her room, one of the soldiers intercepts her and takes her to Semiradov's office. She then confronts Semiradov about feeding people to the creature. He admits that the real reason they are here is to find a way to control the creature, turning it into an effective weapon. He then takes her to the feeding chamber and locks her inside the cage together with 2 other prisoners. From a distance, the creature quickly moves in to attack one of the frightened inmates when Tatiana suddenly stands in front of it, protecting the man behind her. The creature shows hostility but was seized by Tatiana's determination to defend the man. Witnessing its marvel, Semiradov subjugates Tatiana to cooperate with him to investigate how to fully control the creature as he threatens her life. Tatiana forces herself to work the next day. She decides to study the catatonic body of Averchenko with Rigel, to unravel the truth behind the creature's decision for choosing Constantine over him. She finds out that Averchenko has an early stage of cancer that they couldn't detect prior to liftoff. It started with a kidney tumor that eventually causes Addison's disease, a rare disorder of adrenal insufficiency, preventing the body to produce high concentrations of metabolic hormones that include cortisol. The creature was able to detect Averchenko's condition, causing it to choose Constantine as its host. As she calls Rigel to examine Overchenko's body, she hides her message using medical jargon, stating, at 2 p.m. by the medical unit, they will attempt an escape together with him. Using the same cryptic language, Rigel refuses to connive with him. Continuing their conversation with the same language, Tatiana manages to convince him. He then provides Tatiana with a bag that contains a sedative. Without a moment to waste, Tatiana approaches the guard and quickly injects the sedative in his neck, knocking him down. She then takes his gun, gives it to Rigel, and asks him to be on the lookout as she steps inside Konstantin's room. Tatiana finds Konstantin weeping on the floor, feeling sorry for himself. Regardless, she tells him her plan to escape and convinces him to do so. As they leave the room, Rigel hands Tatiana the keys to his vehicle and tells them where to find it. Rigel chooses to stay, telling them that there is something that he needs to do in order to make everything right. They then exchange sincere farewells. Looking at Tatiana and Konstantin heading for the exits, Rigel rushes towards his office as he securely locks the doors with a tape. Then he calls the authorities, reporting the incident. Meanwhile, in the surveillance room, Semiradov looks at Tatiana and Konstantin running off. He then executes a directive to retrieve Konstantin alive, and all at once, a shoot-to-kill order for Tatiana. At the enclosure, the response team is already holding their position, waiting for them to surrender. As Tatiana tries to move away from Konstantin while she raises her hand, the response team suddenly shoots her. Taking a bullet to the gut, she is lucky enough that they missed killing her. On the other hand, Semiradov manages to get inside his office after Rigel discloses all the information to the authorities regarding their operations. Rigel tells Semiradov that he has already informed them about their illegal activities. Expressing his grave disappointment towards Rigel's disloyalty, Semiradov shoots him dead on his seat. Back at the enclosure, hiding behind the crates, the response team slowly closes in. Tatiana then throws the syringe that contains a cocktail of hormones that can imitate the effects of Addison's disease, forcing the creature to leave his body immediately. The creature suddenly appears in front of the soldiers, attacking them one by one. Then Tatiana quickly drags Konstantin inside Rigel's jeep and rapidly drives it crashing through the gates. Semiradov arrives a little too late at the enclosure. Discovering that Tatiana and Konstantin had already fled, he decides to take the creature out all by himself. Driving at daybreak, Tatiana suddenly stops to check on Konstantin's severe condition. Just behind them, Semiradov and his team are closing in. Feeling helpless, Tatiana approaches them and admits she was wrong to think that Konstantin can survive without the creature. Semiradov takes out the heavily injured creature with the intention to force it back inside Konstantin. As Konstantin becomes completely symbiotic with the creature, he then transfers his consciousness to the symbiote, killing Semiradov and his team. Clear from all the danger, the creature re-enters Konstantin's body, and in a few seconds, Konstantin regains his vitality. Looking from afar, they see the authorities coming in. Now able to heave a sigh of relief, Konstantin tells Tatiana that he has finally made his decision just as he subsequently pulls the trigger to kill the creature, alongside himself. Tatiana survives and now leads a free life. After quite some time, after all that's been done, she is now ready to lead a new life together with her adoptive son, the son of the late Commander Konstantin Veshnikov.